All right, all right. Welcome back to the Breaking Chains podcast. It's Christine Jewell, and today I am bringing you guys another great interview. Brian Covey is here with me, and I think we met online and then we met in person in Nashville, but I had been following Brian for a while. I just feel like he is a walking, talking reflection of what he puts out into the world. And so I got done running a leadership event recently, and I asked the guys there, are you a walking, talking reflection of your values, or are you a walking, talking contradiction? And so I'm so excited to have Brian here. Brian, welcome. And I'm going to introduce you here.
I love it, Christine. I'm excited for this, and I love that question you brought up. I'm sure we'll tap into that and a lot more.
We
As
are going to
that's
tap
near and
into
dear to my
that.
heart.
So good. So good. Brian is the EVP of Strategy and Development at Revolution Mortgage. He is responsible for the growth of several multi-billion-dollar teams within his industry. He also is a nationally recognized speaker. He has a podcast called Finding Your Competitive Edge, which is amazing, and Unlocking the Power That Ignites Your Success. I know that you are empowering leaders. You're starting your own coaching. He's a leader. He's an EVP. He's a coach. All the great things. Family man, man of God, father, all the things. So excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here, and I always start with that as like Nicole and I'll be married 22 years this Saturday, and our 3 kiddos, and that's like my greatest work, right? I always say, it's like, yeah, we've built teams, we've built companies, and all that stuff, but like that's where it starts, is at home. And I think when we figure that out, then we start to build out from there.
Good. So I love that. And I'm just going to start right there. I know a lot of people like to start podcasts with like, tell me your story. And I do want to hear your story, but I actually want people to get a taste of, if you could just hit them with the bullet right now at the gate, the one thing that we're just going to really, the message that you're here to communicate into them, and we'll unpack it a little bit more. But if you had that one clear message you want to really speak into people, that we know we're going to unpack with your story and all the questions, what is the thing that we're here to share today?
Ooh, the one message. Well, I share this often with people. This is the one I always come back to, and it took me a while to learn this in my own journey, my own life, is God has uniquely equipped you and qualified you through whatever you've been through, good or bad, right? Like, you may have had a great childhood. You may have had a horrible childhood. You look back and go,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't want to do that again. Doesn't matter which way it is. It's the story you tell yourself. It's what you take from that. And then, as you talk about often, is the change you break along the way, whether it's addiction things you go through, relationships, or jobs that didn't work out, health struggles, alcohol abuse. I know lots of friends of mine getting off that lately. That
Mm-hmm.
is where I believe God has put you through those seasons intentionally so that you can reach people where you once were. And that is what I always tell people, is God's
Come
uniquely
on.
equipped you already. Like, it's inside of you. And many of us just need to step into that power and realize, okay, I have what it takes. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be
Yes.
perfect. I have a truth. I have a message, and there are people out there that need to hear it. And when we step out of that and realize, I think John Gordon said this, is ego is the edging God out. And when we remove our ego, then we can move in and you can serve. And serving is, it's a win-win to me. Like, when you serve other people, you win. You don't lose by
Yes.
helping someone else through your life. So those would be some recurring messages that I found in my own life. And I'm still learning myself and stepping into that every day of, where am I called to be? What's next?
Mm. So good. So good. I love that reminder that he has called us and he has equipped us for a unique purpose. I was meditating on this yesterday, and I heard someone say it, that when God said to Adam and Eve, first he blessed them, so he equipped them and he already anointed them, and then he said, go do the thing. So whenever he tells you, go do the thing, you're going to feel ill-equipped and everything, but we don't remember that he's already blessed us for the thing. And if we just
Yeah.
do it and we obey, that that feeling of feeling ill-equipped is kind of the point, so that we partner with him. Because if you feel ready to rock and roll and crush it, that's going to be the edging God out, right? The ego.
That's it.
I just thought that
Yeah.
was so good, because I was like, man, that is so true. He blessed, he called them to him, he blessed them, and then he said, now go do this. So what a great reminder.
Oh,
Okay,
love
we're
that.
gonna we're gonna go back to right where you started, because you started um, with, let's start with your story, actually, because you and I were chatting about it before the thing. But I do believe, and it's just part of our humanity, we all need to either have a massive breakdown, something has to happen to us or through us or in us, to actually have this wake up call that makes us go, you know what? I'm going to do things. I got to do things radically different. Like what used to
Mhm.
work isn't working. Did you have a moment like that in your life? Cause I see you on social, you know, you got the hot wife, you got the beautiful kids, you've got all these external things, you're fit, you know, you seem to have like, you have a heart of God. I've met you in person. You radiate joy. So it's like, okay, Brian, did you have a breakdown to get here? Were you
Huh.
always like this? What's the deal?
Yeah, it's like which one? I share this as a teenager. I think a lot of us we develop a lot of our identity and some of our characteristics even today. If we look back, and my dad's a psychologist, so I tell everybody it's like I grew up in a very cool household in the sense of
Mm,
my mom worked at the city of Memphis. My dad was a pastor and a psychologist, and so there were lots of conversations that happened in our house, and so I was already in tune with that. What I share with people is I had to go through my own breakdown as a very successful athlete. I was a traveling AAU basketball player, like traveling
mm,
around the country. I was on the US national team pool at an early age, like 13, 14. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I said, oh yeah. And oh, by the way, I was about 40 pounds overweight going into my
mm,
pediatrician's office. I remember as a teenager, and I was the guy that had to wear 2 shirts to go in the pool. I was embarrassed about my health. I was embarrassed about what I looked like because I knew deep down I'm eating like crap. I look like crap. And I'll never forget that day. Dr. Snyder was also our basketball coach. So, very interesting intersection here that I think, again, it was intentional. God had him in my life
mhm,
that I'll never forget when I'm in there with my mom. He starts sharing with me. He's like, you got to change some stuff. Like,
mm,
you're too young. You're headed down a road where your health is going to be forever. Hypertension, diabetes, it already runs in your family. And our family was not eating well together. And I kind of like dropped this nuclear bomb, right? Like, I leave that. And I'm one of those guys, like, I'm all or nothing. I'm like, stop cold turkey. And I'm like, we're going to stop eating crap. We're going to get grilled chicken in. We're going to get turkey in the house. Like, we started eating, which meant
mhm,
the entire house. My older brother, 5 years older, my mom and dad, like I dropped the bomb on them. And then, Christine, out of that, I started running every morning, which was, let's just say, running is a stretch.
yeah,
I was a soccer player and I could run, but I couldn't really run 2 miles in a row. So imagine being this
right,
athlete, but I couldn't do this. And so I started waking up early. I remember at 5 a.m., just running before school. And I started to lose weight and to lose weight. And I was building this discipline and confidence. But all the while, like I knew as a teenager, right? And anybody can relate to this. I go back, like, I already had bad acne. I was already overweight. Like these things are not helping you as a young man. Like it's not good. It's not helping you
mhm,
in life.
mhm,
And all I had was sports to get me through some of those.
mhm,
And sports later was my ticket to go to college, was my later kind of my ticket to go play professional and all of that, which then got me my first job. But then fast forward years later, I'm trying to climb the corporate ladder. And I was sharing this before we talked. And
yeah,
and my biggest breakdown outside of 07, 08, Presley and Davis, our 2 oldest kids, were both born. I lost my job because everything, if you're in the
mhm,
mortgage business or real estate,
mhm,
you remember just
mhm,
collapsed. And Nicole and I are in Florida, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm traveling every week, which not good for the marriage.
no
When you're
good for the marriage.
traveling every week away from 2 kids under 2, and you're like, hey, honey, you got it. You can figure it all out. Like, imagine
Mhm,
the stress.
mhm,
But I believe that prepared me for later in 2017 when I had a mentor and a boss come to me and he said, hey, Brian, never forget, Cinco de Mayo, it's a Friday. And he calls me and literally out of the blue, Christine, I don't see this one coming. We're running the top region in the company. I think things are going well. And he calls and says, hey, we don't think you're a fit anymore.
mm,
And for the men out there that can relate, like when you're a provider and your number one job and you've put everything and your like stock value in the fact that, okay, I'm not as good over here. Like I'm not doing everything I know I should be doing,
mhm,
but at least I'm bringing home and I'm providing like
yes,
money and these things. And then that's ripped away. It's a moment of truth. And I'll never forget Nicole and I both being from faith. We're like, we're going to pray, but something else is bigger here. I could sense that we were being attacked. There were things happening. There's people calling me. Like it's this whole other world happening.
mm,
Anybody that's ever been fired like that, whether it was somewhat expected, not expected, out of the blue, whatever, you start to question everything.
yeah,
Like, is this what I want to do? Am I good enough? Like, what am I going to do next? Oh my gosh, what's my wife going to think about me? What are my friends going to think about me? Is all this like external. And I'll never forget at that point, it was one of those moments where I said, you know what? What have I not been doing? I was chasing the corporate hierarchy, the corporate ladder, pleasing everybody else, doing everything that I thought that everybody else wanted. And all the while, I was never taking care of myself, which meant I wasn't showing up as the best dad, the best husband, the best friends out there. My health wasn't all the way in order. Like you see me now doing all these things. That was not the Brian then. Like I was just getting by. I was just doing enough. And I tell everybody, you have to have these breakdowns to have your breakthroughs. And the breakdown is sometimes you stopping, and yes, it's breakdown emotionally where you're crying and you're going through the emotion. I get that. But I would challenge you to think about the breakdown is, can you review the film like we did in soccer? And can you break down the plays and say, this is where I wasn't performing at my best.
Yeah.
This is where I haven't done what I needed to do. This is where I still have work to do. This is where I'm not showing up as my best self. When I started to break down my playbook of me, you become self-aware of your patterns and the things that you're not doing. And you say, okay, how am I going to respond to this? And my choice was to respond. And Raul, and we connected up and I said, I'm going to go to this crazy thing. I'm going to spend more money than I've ever spent in personal development. Never spent money like that before. I'm like, I'm just going to go to this because I feel called. I have no idea how he popped up in my social media feed. Wasn't really on social much then.
Yep.
And I just checked the box and said, you know what, God, I'm going to go. I'm going to figure some stuff out. Worst thing that happens is I'm out a lot of money. I got to explain it to Nicole. I'm putting it on a credit card. We're just going to figure this thing out. And it was the first time I bet on me. And since then, I've never gone back to realizing that when I bet on me and I put money behind it and I put my heart and soul in it, I have this capacity that I still have not, I don't think I've tapped it all yet. Like I just know, and I believe anybody listening out there, God has this version of you that you've not stepped into yet. And I'm living proof of that, of like just doing enough to get by. That's not what God's called us to do. I don't think that's not competing every day.
No, that is so good. So good. So good. There's so many things I want to unpack in there, but I love that what you said about the breakdown. Are we able to look at it as a playbook, as like to go back and watch our plays, because I do believe, okay, initially you might need a couple big hard breakdowns, something really drastic, but I do believe that once we have awareness, you can catch yourself sooner. You can develop new habits. So you don't have to keep going through these seasons of totally everything in your life breaking down because you catch it before. And hopefully you've got some relationship with God where you're seeking his wisdom and he's kind of saying, Brian, Christine, you're heading the wrong direction. Let go of those people. Do not make that deal, whatever. And so I just wanted to share that because I have a heart, there are people who just keep having one more breakdown after one more breakdown. And maybe suggest it's maybe because you're actually not slowing down to break it down before the external breakdown hits you.
That's it. I'll add on to this. This is what I've learned as you mature through this. And I'm still work in progress. I tell you, like, look, I'm still learning this. Like, as I share this with you, like, I'm still figuring out patterns in my own life of like how God's uniquely wired me. And you have to figure that out for you. What I figured out is when I let it get all the way to the breakdown and I completely break down and I'm crying and I'm super emotional and I'm blaming other people and all that.
Resentful.
Like when you have those emotions, you need to recognize I've been there and I can relate to this. Is that is not where you grow.
No.
That's where we get stuck in these patterns of blame and shame and all this. And I think God's called us this breakdown. We've called it a breakdown. And when we first think about it, I still have people tell me, yeah, I've broken down in this. I go, man, what if there was another breakdown?
Yeah,
what if God was calling you to break it down, like break down the play, break down what happened, and to be so self-aware of what you did in the situation and where you still need to grow, and you recognize the pattern, which means you can then create a new pattern in your life. And I said, that's where I recognize when I'm growing and maturing, it's because I can break down the film and make a change. It's not because I got so emotional and let that take me off my game. Like, these are very different breakdowns that I hope people catch. Is I'm still breaking this down in my own, right? I'm learning this, but there is a difference between them.
So good. I love that reframe on a breakdown. Bring it on, break it down, break it down. Effective immediately. You are someone who breaks it down. You do not need the breakdown from the outside. And it's really the shift is from an internal to the external, right? So you said, okay, break it down. Lots of awareness. Awareness is his first step to real change. And I'm hearing a lot of radical ownership, radical ownership of what is my part. God, what are you trying to show me? Uh, I was on my spin bike, and I just had something hit me the other day. It's like any unanswered prayers you have, you're not waiting on God. He's waiting on you to
Yes.
get ready, your character ready, your heart ready, ask for better things, not the having, but the being. And it's so, so good. Okay. I see you as someone, you said it earlier, like I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. And again, I'm fresh off this leadership retreat Mark and I just did for our summit guys. We were at a hunting lodge out in Nebraska, and really the theme was being the attractor factor and getting into decision, like making a decision to kill off every other option, not to wake up and kind of see what you feel like doing, but really make the commitment and decide. And I do see you as someone who is all in. Like when you're in, you're all in. And you said it. Is that just in you? How does somebody cultivate that? Where does that, like, if a guy's listening or a woman's listening, is like, man, I want to be like that. There's so much power in that, but also people hide behind that and they say, well, I'm an all in or all out kind of guy. And so I'm not, I can't give it my all. So I'm not going to be all in. I see that as an excuse too. So I know I kind of asked a couple different things, but first of all, has it always been in you? How does someone cultivate it? And
Well,
then I want to talk to those people who are using it as an excuse.
I love it. There's a lot of directions we can go. Where I would go is people listening is think about the last time you set a true goal. How committed were you to actually seeing it through, despite all the obstacles, despite the excuses we all have, despite your feelings? And one of my coaches says this is you've got to set standards for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll use this example. If I came into this year and I knew my fitness was good, but it wasn't great. And I use this example because I was in a spot that was probably good enough. From the outside, people are like, man, you're fit, you're doing this. But in my mind, I knew there was another level. There was another gear for me. And I wanted to see what could I do? Like what was possible if I
Yes.
did go all in on it? Like what if I just
Mm-hmm.
made a few changes? And like I
Mm-hmm.
tested this whole theory out. And I think so many of us don't compete, we participate. We don't
Oh.
compete. And I mean, compete means when you show up, you're giving your best you have in that moment versus participation is going through the motions. I checked
Mm-hmm.
the box. I completed the task so I can tell someone, yeah, you know what? I did that thing. Yeah, you know what? I completed this. And, one of our friends and mentors that 75 Hard with Andy and those guys, I know so many people that will complete the same program and yet they have very different results. And I always ask people, when's the last time you committed to something that you actually did for 75, 90, 100 days? And what was your pattern through that?
Mm-hmm.
How did you respond to the obstacles? How did you respond to your feelings? And what are the standards you set for yourself? You see, I was coming into the year, and I'll just be real with you guys, like I was 15.5% body fat, which is by all, like, not bad.
That's
Like
pretty
most
good for
guys are
most
like
guys. That's pretty great for most men, right?
pretty good.
I mean, not like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what's your standard?
Yeah.
And my standard was made from a decision, which you mentioned earlier. I killed off and said, you know what? That's no longer an acceptable number for me. And I wrote down 12. Well, let's be real here too. I'm looking at that going, holy crap, I haven't been 12 and I don't know how long. I haven't been 12 in
Yeah.
my 40s.
Yeah.
I just turned 47. I'm going, and there's parts of me going, I don't know. Can you do this? Can you not do that, Brian? Like, what do you have to do? What are you going to have to give up?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a reframe one of my coaches gave me is, it's not what you have to give up, Brian. It's, and we hear this, but I want you guys to catch this. It's who you have to become.
Yes.
Meaning,
Yes.
okay, I'm the person that's going to choose the grilled chicken over the pizza in the time. I'm the person that's going to say, you know what? I really do want that ice cream, but I'm not going to choose it today. Tomorrow's a new day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But today, in this moment, and I started to recognize patterns in my own life of I was emotionally eating at certain times. I had these patterns of, well, I'm home. I'm working from home a lot. Like, I'm just going to go grab that snack. Hey, you know what? I can just have that one extra cupcake because that's, over there. You know what? I'm working out hard. I'm just going to run that off. I started to see a whole lot of stuff that I always say is like, I was cutting corners. I wasn't touching the line, right? And you think about when people are running a race, like I remember this in soccer, we would run. There are players that wouldn't go all the way to the line.
Mm-hmm. I played
wasn't touching
soccer
the line.
too,
So you know this.
I do
You'd run
know.
races.
Touch the line.
And I realized Christine, there were spots in my life I wasn't touching the line every time. I
So
wasn't going
true.
all the way. I was just going just close enough to kind of see it. And I share all this with you guys because fast forward, my goal by our July 4th trip was to drop below 12%, right? That was my goal. I got to 11 and a half, and then I got to 10.8. I think I'm probably close to single digits now, and I will
That's
get there by September. That's my crazy wild goal. And I share all this with you guys just to go, like, I'm not some superhuman. I don't have something figured out. Like, I don't have anything other than I had a desire and I set a new standard. And I said, you know what? I'm going to see what's possible. And on the other
yeah.
side of that has been some fulfillment, joy, some peace that I found in my own life of I actually enjoy this process of going, man, this works for me, that doesn't. And I don't crave the things I used to. And so if you're listening to this, I would just invite you to consider this. There's something you have on your heart and your mind right now that you want to compete on.
Mm-hmm.
You're either afraid, you're ashamed, you've had people tell you
Mm-hmm.
you can't do it. And I would just invite you. What if? What if over the next 90 to 100 days, you just committed every day to being your best for that day?
Yes.
Attack the day. Tomorrow will take care of itself when you wake up tomorrow, but you start to build these habits and routines and belief system up here that says, if I show up and I do these things, then this is what the person on the other side of it becomes. And I share this with the people I work with is I want to hang out with the future version of Brian. Like that
Yes.
version that's like kicking butt, doing that stuff. What would Christine do in 90 days? What would Brian do in 90 days? Well, I would take the
Mm-hmm.
action. And right before the call today, I had a workout this morning and I took a call while I was running and I went and did 5 miles. Let me just tell you guys, like I was not a big runner. I don't know that I enjoy running. I find some pieces of it enjoyable. But there's parts of it that I go, this sucks.
Yeah.
And as you start to do hard things, I do believe you start to build this muscle that it doesn't matter where in business or in your faith you're tested, your relationships, business decisions, financial decisions, you start to build this muscle and it's decision making that
Yes.
I believe carries you on. So anybody that's listening out there, you need to learn to compete versus participate.
I love that.
Compete every day.
So good. I can so relate to that. I played soccer. I ran track. I've been an athlete since, and since I can remember. And during the hardest times of my life, that was what got me through. It gave me purpose. It gave me something to get up. It gave me small wins every single day that I could go, okay, you know what? I can't control the external, but I can control this one thing. And man, went through a divorce. That was when I was training for World Championships triathlon. I was like, I am just, your vessel controls so much of the rest of you. And so this is the one thing that's in our control. We can get up, we can move, we can activate our brain. And to your point, it builds so much confidence, it builds so much clarity, it builds momentum, and it gives us those wins right out the gate. And I wanted to share this too with the people listening, because I talked about this too with the guys. But when I used to own a holistic health and performance studio in Canada, and people would come in and be like, I hate working out. I'm just not that guy. I hate working out. I suck at it. I don't know what I'm doing. They'd come in overweight, riddled with pain, inflammation. But I'm like, you feel so different when you leave here and you have a totally different frame on that workout. So one of the exercises I used to tell them is like, I don't forget about how you feel before the workout. But the minute you're done, I want you to get that voice recorder and I want you to record and hear yourself say to yourself how you're feeling and make a decision from this state and like voice record. And the next day, add on to it and add on to it and add on to it. And so you literally have this voice recording of you in a powerful state, confident state. And we make decisions totally different on the flip side of that, right? So forget about how it feels going in. Is on the backside is how we feel. And two other things that you said there that I think are huge is you said compete, but you said, what else? And so it makes me think about you're leading from a place of curiosity. Like, what else is possible for me? What else is capable? It doesn't feel heavy, like, oh man, I got to do this. It's not obligation. It's not guilt. It's not heavy. Curiosity keeps it light. You can be disciplined. You can be in warrior mode and be curious. And I see that
Yes.
in you. And that's something that I've really adopted is like, what is it like to playful out, have a heart for it, but and do it from a place of like, what else is possible for me? What else can I stretch? And it is really, I'm always super interested in like what's the fuel that drives this, but it's curiosity. It's
Mhm.
in your DNA to be growing. Otherwise, we feel stagnant and unhappy. So when you said, what else? I just see like, can we harness more curiosity? I think this is so true in business too. We get heavy around numbers, sales. We
Yes.
just talked to a bunch of sales guys. I'm like, metrics are important, but stop beating people over the head with metrics. Can we gamify this thing and compete? And it was hilarious, Brian, because one of the activities we did, okay, we're talking to a bunch of guys last week who are like, I hate running. I hate working out. They can't get up and work out. Then in the afternoon, they went paintballing. And we had a shooting range the first day, which was super fun. We did this like
Oh
whole
yeah.
competition, shooting different guns, racing, carrying a dummy. And the second day, there was paintball. Well, those guys who said they couldn't run and they hated working out, you put a gun in their hand and dress them up, and they had to play like save the president or something. One of them was a president and assassins. It was these guys were all out. They were all in, like they were
Yeah.
running and hurling down the hill. And I just said, wow, that was a lot of heart and a lot of ambition and a lot of drive. What just happened there? Because they were saying that it's hard to tap into. And when you were saying that, it was like, we can gamify it. It's in you
Yes.
because you get thrown into a paintball arena or whatever. All of a sudden it comes out of you. So I don't know, right? Like how can we gamify this and make it fun? And so it just reminded me of you were talking of these guys coming back, like welted,
Well,
covered with like grass and everything. And I'm like, oh, I thought you couldn't run. Oh, sure you
yeah,
can.
it is. You got to find what works for you. Look, I've shared to people. I trained by myself for many, many years, and I tried that version. I found what works for me, and I was like, you got to find what works for you. I love the class setting, right? So I do similar to a CrossFit style, and
Yeah.
we're at Iron Tribe, and there's a group. And try. It's not so much about the group and what they're doing and how fast they're going and how good they are or any of that stuff. It's just a community that does provide accountability and support where I know when I show up, I'm going to enjoy conversations. I'm going to have people that are pushing themselves around me. And that environment, I believe, for me and many others, by the way, I would actually argue, is better for you when you have people around you that are working. I've
Yes.
noticed
Yes.
some of my, and I'll just call out my guy friends here. They go into the Globo gyms and they're doing their weights and their training, and they wonder after years why they don't look different, why they don't feel different. And they're like, man, what are you doing? And I said, well, you go in, and if I were to audit what you're doing when you go in by yourself, even the most disciplined person, you're scrolling your phone, you're watching other people, you're doing some things here and there, and you're probably wasting time. If you come into a class and it's orchestrated, and it's here is the warm up, here is what we're doing, here's what's happening next, you have no negotiation. This is what you're doing. And oh, by the way,
Follow the
like
plan.
in life, you have a coach that's coming alongside you, and I come, and Christine, you're starting to struggle. The workout's getting hard, and I look at you. You got more, Christine. You got to push. You're like,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, I got more. I've seen it time and time again. And some of the people are not the most fit that you're like, they're running Spartan races and triathlons. That is not like, that's not what we're trying to build.
Yeah.
I see people in there, moms and dads, even a college student that was back with us this summer. And you just see that environment pushes them. And so I would just ask everybody, are you in the right environments that are pushing you
Yes.
spiritually, relationally, financially, and in your health and fitness? And if you're not, the first thing you can do today is make a change and get around other people that are going to help you level
Yes.
up in those areas. It is
Yes.
the shortcut to getting around people that have already figured out something that you want to be great at. Like, I tell everybody, look, there are days I don't have the best discipline, but you know what I do have is I'm going to show up. And I find out when I get there, I tend to put in the work.
Yes.
Like,
So good.
it
I love what
works.
you said. It is so true. Our environment is a shortcut for those of you who like hacks, coming from the biohacking world and everything. But if you like hacks, it really is a hack. You get in the right environment because we are a product of our environment. We always rise or fall to the external. So we want to create the environment at home and at work. But we also got to get in the
Oh,
right
it's it.
environment that
And
stretches
I'll
us.
share this one with you. I've got a group of 6 men that we text every day. And, my friend Ken had put that group together, and all of these guys, like, very faith-based, and they're all highly successful, like more successful than I am in so many areas. And I look to them. And what's interesting is then they'll come to me and like, hey, Brian, this is what we admire about you. This is what you do well that inspires
Mm.
us. And there's not a comparison. It's a group that I
Mhm.
would encourage you to find in your life that can inspire you in those areas. And it might just be
So
they drop in
true.
a Bible verse. It might be they just drop a
Yeah.
family picture. It might be that they just drop a word of encouragement in there. And what I know is there's men on the other side of that text thread that are counting on me to show up my best, because they say when they're out, hey, I'm friends with this Brian guy. And there is something in me that, if you don't have this, is I want to show up for my family. And now I have this core group of men that I go, I never want to let them down. And if
Yes.
they're out there, I want to be that example and go, that's the type of people I want to be around. And they level me up in areas that you can't do it yourself. Nobody gets there alone.
Yes,
Nobody.
it's so good. It's so good. And as you're saying that, I think about also when we are part of those groups, be the person that doesn't tolerate everyone else's excuses. Because it sometimes can be, you get in these environments where it's like, okay, now it's like a club. It's more than that. We're talking about getting ties that will raise you up, that will call you up, you know?
That's right.
Okay, so I want to do a little bit rapid fire. I talk a lot about addressing things holistically. You know, sometimes people just want to address the physical stuff or they just want to address the mindset. And we're integrated beings. We have mind, body, spirit, emotion. So I want to ask from your, wisdom, your wealth of wisdom, what is the number one belief system? Because I want to go through mind, heart, spirit, and action. Okay, real quick. So I want to ask you one question in each. What is the number one belief system that you believe people need to break free from mindset wise and adopt instead? I'm going to ask you for each of the arenas. So,
Mm.
what's the number one belief system? If somebody says, you know what, Brian, I want to change my life, I want to transform my life, but I can't. What if you could just implant the chip? It's like we're going to remove this and we're going to implant this. What what is it? What's the mindset that's got to
You
shift?
know, it's a belief system, but actually, I believe it's backed up by data and science. Actually, I've studied this, and you probably know Jamie Kern Lima,
Mhm.
and her book on worthy. And
Yes.
I think that is still the number one thing that I know I have faced. And when I talk to even highly successful people that you and I both know, they don't believe that they're worthy of whatever the next thing is in their life. And it could be their
Mm,
relationship with their spouse. It could be worthy of having that much success. I see so many successful people actually self-sabotage, and there's a whole other conversation about that.
yeah.
But I think most people don't believe they're worthy of more in their life. They think either because of their upbringing and their just belief system is, well, that's what my parents did, and that's where they lived, and that's how much money they made, and that's the struggles they had, and that's the addictions they had, and all of that is just normal. I think we've normalized so many of these things, and I'll just take alcohol as one. And this
Yeah.
might offend some people, and if it does, okay, I'm here for it. Is I've had lots of conversations with my friends lately. Is I understand to a degree, because I've been there, that some people have this alcohol relationship. And I know some people have
Mhm.
had to battle it and overcome it, and it is in their family, and they're just wondering how they break free. I think alcohol has been one of the things that we have normalized so much in our society. And I've seen the power of when people break free from that, how the rest of their life changes. And
Mhm.
and why I'm sharing this one is it's become so normal. When I came up in corporate America, it was just socially acceptable. You drink, you do this. That's what you do when you go to party. You do that when you go there. And look, I'm not saying that everybody has to be 100% alcohol free and all that. I'm just saying it's worked for me. And I have seen people struggle, but not struggle with the alcohol. They struggled in other areas of their life. But when they tied it back to a discipline, that they were able to say no to something that had a grip on them.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's alcohol for you. I don't know if that's food for you. I don't know if that's like for men, like pornography for you. I don't know
Mhm.
what it is.
Yeah.
But there's something that you don't believe you're worthy of breaking free from that, and actually then opening the space for where God's created this space to pour in the good. And people hold on to those. And I think they really don't believe life could go on without it. And
Yeah.
so I would just say, if that's you and you're stuck to something like that, or some addiction, or something that you're just holding on to because you just think that's normal, it's not normal. It's not.
Mhm.
And I've been around enough people and experienced enough of that in my own life to go, God's called you for more. And until you step into that more and believe that you're worthy of that next level, you're going to stay at your same level.
Mm-hmm.
And that level means you can't serve more people, because every new
Come
level you
on.
get to then allows you to serve the level you were at and the level before that and the level before that. So it's super selfish. And to me, it's super
It is.
egotistical for you to stay where you are and not believe that you are worthy to go to the next level. It's just going to require work. It's going to require
Come
discipline. It's going
on.
to require the breakdowns. And
So good.
that's what I would share
So
with you.
good.
That's the belief system that I know I've been stuck in those patterns and those
Mhm.
seasons. And you're like, that's for them. That's not for
Yeah.
me.
It is part of the human condition, it's part of our human condition, and it's a perfect lead in into the spiritual part. But you're absolutely right. And I love that you said, I've been convicted of that so many times where I've said, I felt like the Holy Spirit saying, Christine, it is a sin to think yourself unworthy. You know why? And it goes into the spiritual upgrade that needs to happen, because a lot of people spiritually have been taught, oh, you are not worthy. So what? Because we can we can try to believe it and say affirmations all day long. And I do believe in affirmations to an extent. I believe they need to be backed by truth and action and,
Yeah.
the word of God, what the word of God says. But what has to shift spiritually, you know, in someone? Because the mindset, I'm 100% on board with you. And, like I've gone through so many iterations of that, and God keeps stretching me and stretching me and
Mm-hmm.
showing me even more. In fact, coming back from Italy, Mark and I just spent a month in Italy. And really, that whole time, Brian, I took all this work there, and I'm like, I'm going to create all this content. I'm going to get all this stuff done.
Yes.
And I just felt so like the Spirit come over me one morning and say, this is the content. Can
Mm,
you just receive it? Because the receiving is about the giver.
that's right.
And I was like, oh, and he was like, can you receive more of me? Because it's not really about you. It's about me. And so I
Mm,
kind of jumped in there a little bit, but spiritually that's something that, you know, was a reframe on so many years of religious programming that was like, oh, you're not worthy. And it's like, really, it's not about me. Because if I think, am I worthy? Am I worthy? Am I worthy?
yeah.
It's still about me. It's still the ego versus like, wow, what about you? But I'm curious, is there anything else for you, Brian, from a spiritual perspective that has really allowed you to spiritually stretch? Like, is there anything that people need to break free from spiritually? I mean, I think addiction has a lot of spiritual roots. Uh, but I just want to pass that over to you, because I do believe there's spiritual holds and
Yep.
spiritual things holding us down. And what's the breakthrough?
So in college, you'll appreciate this, soccer player. We used to run the Cooper test. You familiar with that is?
No, no, no. The
2 miles in
Cooper.
12 minutes.
Okay.
And again, I'm not the fastest runner, but we would train every summer, and this is in Memphis, right? So tremendous amount of heat and humidity in August when you're running it, and majority of the team would pass it, right? Some guys are super fast and all that, but you're running your 2 miles in 12 minutes. And I remember as I was preparing every summer, there was a verse, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength, right? And I share that verse with you is that was the verse I would actually say to myself when things got painful and tough. I would actually
Mm-hmm.
say it out loud. There were times where my junior and senior year, I was a captain, and I had guys on my team that we needed to rally to finish, right? Because as a captain, just because you finish doesn't mean that that works. Like you got people you've got to pull in with you. And so I remember there were always a couple guys around me, and I would try to rally, and I would say that verse out loud. And I share that one because the verse is, I can do all things, not some things,
Yes.
not a few things. It's all things. And I think it ties together of the spiritual side of, if God tells us that I can do all things, then who am I to limit that and say, well,
Come
you
on.
said all, I'm going to say a few.
Right?
And I think that is a belief system for some of us,
Mm-hmm.
and go, I mean, even as we were talking before this, is, we're launching the coaching side of my business. And as I've launched different business ventures or tried this, or Nicole and I've said, hey, we're going to go do that. It's like, well, who am I to say that that's not possible?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to go try that. I'm going to work it
Mm-hmm.
until there is a foreseeable end or future to it. And I'm going to put all my effort and energy around it, and let's see what happens with it. And I think we're our own greatest limiter. And
Mm-hmm.
if the verse says all, Why not
Then we're
let it be
limiting
all?
God. And so it's like, okay, great. I'm greater than God. I know better than him, right? I mean, what a slap in the face. And I love that. It's so true. And that verse has helped me so many times. Anytime that old belief system or that old spirit that wants to pull you down and diminish you and have you disconnect and forget about who you are, it is about who we are. It's because we're the temple and we're the house and we're the vessel where the spirit is alive. And if the spirit is in me, then who can be against me, right? It's so good. And I hope you guys are getting this because this is super powerful. We talked a lot about action, but the last thing in here, because I always like to give people a frame of like mentally, spiritually, in your heart too, because I believe when we take care of the heart of the matter, behavior modification takes care of itself. And I know maybe this is a difference between men and women. We're more heart oriented and
Yeah.
men are more about the doing. And I certainly believe that if you do the right action enough, your heart may change because you'll see different results. But I also know sometimes just exercising more willpower doesn't necessarily change the heart. So if you don't change the heart, you don't necessarily always get lasting behavior modification.
Mhm.
So what's got to change in here? What does someone get to address in their heart? And I mean, maybe it is this worthiness. Maybe there's something else. And I know a lot of these feel like they overlap, but I love that when David said, search my heart, Lord. And if there's anything in me that's got to come out, or be cleansed or healed or worked on, like, so that I can take the lead, so that I can take this place as king, like reveal it to me. What about for you, Brian? Have you noticed, like, when you've obviously you work with leaders all day long, you're in business, you're in entrepreneurship, you're in coaching. What do you see as the number one shift that's got to happen in these guys' hearts? Maybe women too.
I was having this kind of idea or thought process, right? And this thought train as I'm running, and that happens often as I'm running and my brain's just, it's like, it's talking, right? I almost think it's like time with God sometimes where I'm like, we're talking back and forth. I'm like, okay, I'm wrestling
Yes.
with this. What does this mean? And well, what about that? And, I'm just like, just on my own, just out
Yeah.
there. And I think in nature, it's kind of intended to be that way, and
Mhm.
it flows. This morning, I was thinking about that is the people that I've been around, and even my own life, when I've been at peace and I've been able to serve people at my best, it's when I had this inner peace in a way. And we talk about, and this isn't some like, oh, inner
Yeah.
peace. This isn't Kung Fu Panda. I love that movie.
Yeah.
But I do think there is something to that when you can be still and you can be in your thoughts and understand them and process them, and then go serve and have conversations. And my coach says this all the time is be where your feet are. And
Mhm.
I think people struggle with this. I know I've struggled with this for years. Is you're in a conversation with someone and your mind's here, your mind's there. You're thinking about
Mhm.
what you're going to eat later. You're thinking about what you didn't do
Mhm.
this morning that you need to do. And you're like, oh man, what's happening later? And hold on, did I forget this? Did I pay that bill? Like, hold on. If you can learn, and I believe this is psychology again, like I love studying all that. But you
Yes.
can train your brain to be intentionally focused, not just focused, but intentionally focused where you are in these shorter blocks of time. You're actually going to see people talk about quantity and quality in this. Like when the quality of your conversations, the quality in which you show up, when your heart is in tune and you're at peace, the quality at which you show up outweighs the quantity. A lot of times we just try to do more, do more, do more, be
Mhm.
more. It's
Mhm.
like, what if I got great at the little things? And
Yes.
I think that's the other day, one of our good friends, Rory Vaden, at
Mhm.
Brand Builder, shares this. He's like, when you can move from being self-centered to service-centered, watch how the world responds and reacts. And you show up just to serve other people. And in business, I'll give you a great example. I had a phone call this morning, one of our branch managers, and he's just running down this opportunity. Another team, they're looking to join forces and all that. And I know so many times in my previous versions of Brian, is I would just be thinking about other things and quick to
Mhm.
respond and this. And I caught myself this morning, and it was like I was very in tune and present. And that phone call didn't even last probably 15 minutes. But the
Mm.
quality of the phone call, and we left with actionable items. They left with a clear plan of action. I knew what I needed to do. And I
So
share all
good.
that because you're going to have conversations every day. And that's where your heart can tie into the mental side, the spiritual side, and you can be your best. And it doesn't mean you need to have hour-long conversations. And I think when I shifted that reframe of, I'm going to be phenomenal at these 10, 15-minute conversations and give it my all. Or I'm going to be in a 30-minute meeting with someone. I'm going to give it my all and be there. That reframe for many people, they go through life and they're just on the multitask. They're on the smartphone. Like, you got 5 apps running at one time and you wonder why you leave exhausted. You don't know really what happened. You can't really remember what the conversation was about. And you didn't leave that person in their best after you were with them. And I always think about, for me, this is something I challenge myself. When you and I leave the conversation, I want to leave you better, feeling better, thinking better, believing better than before we had the conversation. To me, that's serving another human being, because I'm thinking about, what can I give you, not what can I get from you. And I would just share all that. That was on my heart as I'm running. And it's probably deep for some people, but that's sometimes what goes through my brain as I'm running, and I have to process it. And then you have to become that person, right? Because it's not enough to just think about it. You got to go believe it and do it.
So good. There's so much power in 10 minutes of presence, and by the way, this is great relationship advice right here too. Because, we could be doing chores all day on a Saturday together, and we could be running and spend all the time in the car, road tripping to sports games for the kids. We could be doing all this stuff, but never feel like we got each other, and I know I speak to so many men who want more connection with their wives. Ladies, the guys really do want more connection with you. And yet it's so simple that we just don't do it. And it's simple, but it's not easy, right? It does require a lot of energy in the beginning, but it is such a powerful thing to just be all in. And I will definitely be better after our conversation. And that ties back to standards. We have a saying in our house, and that was us raising the standards, which was really like, leave it better than you found it. Whether it's a house, whether it's something somebody let you borrow, you walk in the kitchen, like, leave it better than you found it. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about here. It ties back to that standard, and a heart of service, heart of being there, a heart of being able to experience each other, which is really just what the Father wants from us too. Spiritually, that's what your wife wants, that your husband wants, that your kids want, that, it's like, can you just be here with me? And man, when people feel seen and they feel heard, they'll just show up and pour right back into you. It's a great recipe for transformational leadership,
Right.
But God, we got to break free of this. I got to give, I got to give to get, or I got to be, taking, but just come to pour into people and watch. Like, it's just a law, it's written into the fabric. So good. Okay, Brian, share with us. What are you up to? What are you, I know you're up to a lot of different things. What are you working on that you're passionate about, that you're excited about? And how can people connect with you if they want to hear more from Brian?
I love it. Well, our Revolution Mortgage team, it's 23 years in the mortgage business. If you told me that I was going to get in the mortgage industry, I'd be like, no way, no how. And that's evolved. And I love getting to serve people. And I always say, it's like, I'm able to help them because I was in their shoes. And now it's really about building a culture and a team. So I'm loving Revolution Mortgage journey. And I also feel like, we were talking about this before, is I've really felt called, and I fought it. As I was trying to get a job out of college, I went and got my B license to coach soccer, which there's an A license, which is like professional college. I went all the way to get my B. And I always knew I would coach at some point. And so I've really felt God calling me to do that. I did some group coaching, some one-on-one last year, and we built out this competitive edge coaching is what we've called it. And I believe everybody has a competitive edge. Your edge is found in those details we talked about, in your standards. And I want to help people unlock that and really build a community around how do they show up in all these areas we've talked about today as their best. And so we're making it affordable. We're launching it in October. We're going to be promoting the heck out of it, because I really believe this is almost part of my life's work. And that, Nicole and I'll be celebrating our 22 years and raising 3 kids. And like, I've had lots of like wins and losses and successes and failures, and just some experience where I go, what would I have wanted 10 years ago in my career? And it's really that framework that we've designed this as, intentionally to equip people on how they can win no matter where they are in this. And so there's going to be some beginner, intermediate, advanced information we share, from finance, tax strategies, relationship advice, health and fitness stuff that I've learned as I go through, spiritual advice as you go through all of that. And I say, look, we're going to help you in all that, strategic leadership, and bring in all of the things that I've been coached and spent a lot of time and money on. Bring some of my friends and experts, like yourself, we
Yeah.
were talking about. Bring in this network that I've been able to acquire over 2 decades and share them with people, because I think they don't have access. They may not know if they're real. Today on social media, you don't know who's real or not. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
curate this. I'm pumped about it. And then I'll tell you this last part of, I'm
So
really
good.
excited about this next season. We got a senior, a sophomore, and a third grader. And so Nicole and I are like, we're all over the place with sports and different things, but I believe this season God's really called us is like, how do we continue to equip them? Each of them are in such different seasons.
Different
Is
seasons.
just, it's like all of you will relate in leadership. It's like, as you're leading team members, they're all in different places. Just meet them where they
True.
are. And it's always a great reminder for me of not having the same conversations with each of them, because they're all in different spots. And so I'm
Right?
excited about all of that and just what's to come. It's a
Mm-hmm.
blessing to be on the show with you and get to share some of the stories. So thank you.
So good. And he has a podcast called Finding Your Competitive Edge. So you guys can check that out, all the major platforms. But we'll drop some links so you guys can stay connected with Brian. And I'm excited to hear more about the container and maybe partnering together on some things. So thank you, Brian, for being here. So good. So much gold. We could keep talking and talking. We talked a lot about character. But we also gave you guys a lot of practical, tactical tools. So if you can just take one thing from today, just one thing that's hitting home, and implement it. Take action. Commit to taking consistent action. You will see results, and results build momentum, and momentum builds motivation, you guys. So, as always, if this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you guys. Comment, subscribe, share this podcast with someone in your network who needs to hear this. This is how we spread the word, you guys. Until next time, here's to loving fiercely and leading courageously. Bye for now.